everybody. Welcome to Northpointe Plus. This is our podcast where we go over last week's message. This is episode 160, so we've been doing it for a while. Would not say that we were experts, but we kind of know what we're doing, right? So
you actually are approaching this differently as a host.
What do you mean?
Now that you're not on staff. Like
what?
You have a different demeanor.
Oh, really? Don't tell me that. I thought I would.
You're more in charge. And less like,
Really?
oh, Rick, I have to do this.
No, I always like to do it. That's funny. And I was thinking the last time I did it was my first time not being on staff hosting. And we have started both podcasts with us laughing.
It seems like almost every time we do, yeah.
We're just joking.
Talk
we're
about
catching
stuff
up.
ahead of time. That's right.
Because before, I could just go and talk to you whenever. And now I'm like, oh.
Interestingly enough, I had a conversation with some people who are outside of our immediate Northpointe family that are in other parts of the country that said, oh, yeah, I listen to Sylvia. I know Sylvia's story.
Oh, my gosh, that's so weird. You kind of forget about
famous.
that. Oh, yeah. Well,
you're famous.
Now I have to watch what I say. No.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, do you want to do just a quick little recap? Oh, actually, you know what? I'm going to interrupt myself because I was talking about this with Jenna when I got in here today.
Yeah.
Fall Fun Fest is this Saturday.
It is, and it's going to be great.
This Saturday. Like, oh my gosh. I hope that people are just so hyped to come do it. It's such a good time. The weather is supposed to be okay. It's definitely
It's going to be great.
Fall weather, you know?
Going to be great.
So I think that what are you most excited for Fall Fun Fest?
I've said it before on Sunday when I talked about it. I think that it is such a great opportunity for people to do what they want to do, which is to talk to the people they work with or their neighbors or whatever and invite them to come. And so I like it. I like it a ton because it's just a chance to talk to people and to say, how'd you get here? Oh, we saw the advertising on Facebook or whatever. We're somebody's neighbor or friend or whatever. And so for me, it's great because I just like talking to people and it gives me an opportunity to talk to lots of people.
You talking to people?
Yeah, it's fun.
You're such an introvert, though. I never would have thought that.
I'm so shy.
I was gonna say my favorite part is I don't know
candy.
if this is. I was gonna say this might be cheating, but it's after the fact, like where we get to see people at church and they come, or like we see people out. I see people out in the community at Meyer, where I'm like, I know you. I'm like, how do I know them? They went to Fall Fun Fest. It's so weird, but like that's kind of fun because you're making a connection, even if they don't come back to church every Sunday. But like I still know them, and it's like, oh my gosh, hey, like
I had a really really fun conversation Sunday at church with a woman who was there with her adult-aged daughter. And her daughter said, I'm relatively new. I had never met him before. And she said, this is my third week. I said, oh, that's really cool. So I'm talking to her, just kind of hearing the story. I asked how she got there. And she said, oh, my mom's been coming. And she invited me. And I said, oh, how'd you get here? And she said, well, I got here because of Fall Fun Fest last year. We came, I brought my kids, and she actually, I'm trying to think because I want to give a shout out to the right person, and I'm just trying to reconstruct the conversation. I think that she said Brenda Masaryk came up and talked to him at Fall Fun Fest last year and helped with her two kids that needed some help. Yeah. And so she had engaged them in conversation, and so they've been coming to church.
That's so cool.
That's why we're doing Fall Fun Fest.
Yeah. So, I really like that. Yeah. So maybe that was just my like church answer, but yeah, I'm excited for the candy too. Or you know what? Do you know? Are they doing cotton candy this year?
We are doing cotton candy.
Okay, because last year, day of, when the cotton candy machine decided to die, like right before we started, my heart was broken. I love me some cotton candy.
Cotton candy is marvelous.
So that's where I'll be standing on Saturday. If anybody wants to talk to me specifically, right next to the cotton candy machine, maybe the popcorn. I don't know. We'll see.
That sounds good.
Yes, I'm excited just to see all the kids running around on campus. Like we have such a cool yard at the church. Yeah. And that's just fun. But
good times.
I know. Okay.
Anything else you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about a football game?
I don't know what you're talking about. That's so crazy. Yeah, I don't watch football. That's more of a basketball girl myself.
Okay, I'm just wondering.
totally forgot to bring my MSU cup too. Dang it. You know, when Jake started talking on Sunday, I I wouldn't look at him. I was just like this, staring up at the ceiling, looking at other people. I'm like, I'm not giving them the satisfaction.
What was really funny was I had thought after the game Saturday night, I had thought, you know what, I'm not going to say anything tomorrow. The question is, do I want to say that I'm not going to say anything?
Yeah.
Which is the same thing as
saying something.
Yeah. And so that's where I was. And Jake got up first service and said, yeah, I'm not going to say anything about a game, which was saying something about the game.
Yeah.
But
yep.
then,
Actually, you want to know something funny? My mom actually said yesterday, she goes, I don't know. I thought they had a chance. I'm like,
oh.
I don't know.
This is on the podcast, and I'll say it out loud. Michigan
Recorded.
State. Michigan State was a different Michigan State team than has played Ohio State in the last 3 or 4 years.
Would you dare to say that Michigan State is good?
I would say this. They played with I as an Ohio State fan, I was concerned. I was concerned
clarify.
because they were playing with lots of intensity, and if they had not made the turnovers that they did, it would have been a very different game.
Yeah, I heard a lot of people, complaining about the refs. I think that happens every game. But
always.
so, Sue, if you could do me a favor and clip that later, in no context, no context. We're gonna post that Rick is a Michigan State lover. He loves.
I didn't say that.
You didn't, and it was funny because halfway through, I'm like, "Oh, this is so good. We can clip this." And then you said, "As an Ohio State fan," and I was like, "Dang it, you had to clarify." Right. Okay, but anyway.
Okay, now to the
off that
horrible
off that game. Do you want to just recap what you talked about on Sunday?
So we're in this series called Battleground State about spiritual warfare. I hope people are being challenged by it.
Oh yeah,
as much as it is for us who are speaking. There's just lots to dive into. And what's interesting is I've always in sermons about the armor of God. Typically, it might be a week or two. So you do all kinds of, you do multiple pieces, and we're going through very slow and deliberate. So
I like it.
I did verse 13 and part of verse 15, and just as we were. As I prepped the series and started thinking about, okay, this is an opportunity to talk from this verse about this particular thing. There, in verse 13 and verse 15, there's strong teaching about being prepared, about being ready for the battle, and if you're ready for the battle, what you do as a result of that. And so I just wanted to talk about being prepared, and I think that there are lots of pieces to that, but that was the essence of the message. That the gospel of peace, we can talk about that in just a second or whatever. But so much of being ready for the spiritual battles that we encounter is in being prepared. That if you wait to get ready, it's too late. Because you end up in the battle and not equipped. Yes.
I was going to say to John Wooden, you were quoting him. One of my 8th grade teachers, actually, he's the I think he's the AD at the high school I told you about. One of my favorite teachers, history teacher.
Yeah.
Loved John Wooden. Had a whole board dedicated to his quotes, and didn't he do the Pyramid of Success?
Yes.
Yeah. So it was so you were saying that, I'm like, I already know this. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But
fun fact about John Wooden.
Yeah.
One of the kids who was a student at Ozark when I taught there did John Wooden's funeral.
Wow, really?
And John Wooden said he was his favorite preacher.
Wow.
Which was really cool.
Yeah.
I don't know about favorite preacher. He said about Kyle Idleman, he said he's the only preacher I've ever seen never use notes.
Oh.
Like he would preach.
Wow.
Just with his Bible in his hand, but really rock solid stuff.
Yeah. That is cool.
Yeah.
So I kind of have just a question to throw in there.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anybody else, but I was like, why are we skipping 14? Like, what was 13 and 15? Why are we skipping it? And because I've been memorizing it as we go.
Good for you. Yeah.
Yes. And
let's hear it.
I knew you were going to say that. And I was like, no, I can't do it right now because I'm going to get too shy and I'm going to mess it up. And then that's out there forever. So it's a work in progress.
That would be a great clip.
I know, but okay, I promise I'm doing it. I've been really enjoying this whole series, but it makes sense with your sermon being prepared and starting at the foundation and building your way up. Do you think that there is like a reason why, but do you think like the order was important at all? Like the way it's written in the Bible? Because I know we've talked about like, it doesn't really, like the armor doesn't really matter. It's more just about
being ready.
The idea of being ready and clothing yourself and covering yourself. Do you think that the order matters at all?
I don't know that the order matters. I think it makes you wonder. I mean, people have said, and you know what? I didn't go back and look. I'm thinking that, do I want to say this or not? I can't remember whether Ephesians was written while Paul was in prison or not.
Okay.
But if so, it would make a ton of sense for him to be writing and see the guard standing at the door in all of his armor, and then to just spell it out. And so I don't think it's like the order is as important as, okay, what are the
pieces?
The pieces.
Yep.
What are the concepts that he's trying to
gotcha.
communicate? And I think when he did, and at the end of verse 15, when he talks about your feet shod with the preparation that comes from the gospel of peace, like he's picturing stuff. He starts. Verse 14 is coming this Sunday. So
okay, I was going to ask.
Skip it. It's coming this Sunday.
I was going to say, can we get like a little sneak peek? All right.
It's coming this Sunday.
Nice.
But that as he went through, but as I looked at it and kind of planned out the series, it was like the end of 14 doesn't really, I mean, it goes with the rest of it, but it really goes more with the whole idea of being prepared and taking a stand.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace.
No, and that's kind of what I was saying. Like, it totally makes sense why, but it's funny because in my brain, I'm like, no, we're going in order. Yeah. And so then for us to skip it, I was like, and then you tied it all together, and I'm like, I guess I get it. That was clever, Rick. That was a good one.
Thanks. Thanks.
So actually, too, I think it was Jake who mentioned when you sign the book, you get into church, you get an email, because that's where we put all of our information about our sermon series. This is where we put the podcast to, and like things about Fall Fun Fest or serving. And so that's how people get the email and learn about all these things. And Kevin messaged us and said, like, we talked about the emails, but I don't get the emails. Like, so what's that about? So if you put your email in the book every week, Sue will get it in the office, and then that's when she inputs everything. And that's how we get your email. The tricky thing is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like the tricky thing is if you unsubscribe from Northpointe emails, like that go out from our database, like it kicks you off of all the emails, right? So like if you're like, oh, my kid's not in children's ministry anymore, but I'm still getting these emails, I'm going to unsubscribe. It can unsubscribe you from everything. So that could be one thing. Check your spam folder too. Or maybe if you would like a different email, like if you have, I can be honest, I used to put my old email in the church when I first started coming here because I'm like, I don't want the emails.
You didn't want to track you down.
I think I was only like 16 or 17 when I started coming, but I'm like, I'm going to put my like
your
old
Sylvia
email.
Strife email.
Yes, my maiden name email. My burner email.
That's right.
But so if you want it just updated, or if you're like, hey, you know what, I haven't gotten any of those, you can email our office or call, and we can take care of that.
Yeah. One other housekeeping bit of that. If you're watching this but you're not getting emails, it may be. Sometimes people have been known to not have great handwriting when they fill out that out. So if you're not getting an email, it may be good to just call the office, talk to Sue or whatever, and just say, or to send a text or an email that says, this is my correct email, because that way we can make sure that it's right in the database.
Yep. Same thing.
Sometimes we miss an L versus a 1.
I was gonna say, or even if you get a letter and your name is spelled wrong, sometimes I'm like, I think this is how they spell their name. I hope so. So that's just, that's funny. Funny. Actually though, we didn't get any questions this week. And this is what happened last time when I was doing the podcast with you. No questions. And you guys, Rick loves to talk. So give him some questions.
Well, last week we had 14 questions. And none this week.
Right.
So I guess Tim's,
and that's a two-parter, right?
Yeah.
No, he's not. You guys are all great.
Yeah.
Okay, but we did have a question. It's okay if it's okay. We skip back to our other podcast that we did, and it just got in too late, right?
Yeah, it came in after we had already recorded.
Yeah. So it says, I have so many questions about Job 1 and 2 and the presence of Satan before the Lord. How could this even be possible for Satan to be in the presence of the Lord and in heaven? Also, the angels that presented themselves before the Lord, are they fallen angels that Satan tagged along with, or am I reading that through the filter of Ephesians 6:12?
Yeah, that's a great question, and the short answer is we don't really know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we can give lots of answers of what other people think, but when you read Job 1 and 2, in both Job 1 and 2, it talks about the angels coming before God, and the picture in my mind is like it's almost inspection, that either maybe they're coming to just worship, coming in before God to worship Him. Maybe God's checking them out to make sure that their wings are all in order. You don't really know.
Yep.
But then it says when the angels were doing that, Satan came in and said and began to accuse God that God was making it possible, making it too easy for everybody, and God says, look at my servant Job. So we don't really know. I personally don't think that they were fallen angels. I think that somehow that God allowed Satan to come in and make those accusations. He allowed him into his presence. How, I don't know.
Yep.
I just don't know. But I do think that it does give some insight into the whole context that we're talking about in terms of spiritual warfare and the spiritual world, that there clearly in Job 1 and 2, there are angels that are there. God is there. Satan is there. He talks about going to and fro over the earth, looking to see if he can find someone that he can attack or to find someone righteous. So, yeah.
I don't know if it's just because I'm a little bit of a competitive person. I wouldn't say I'm overly competitive, but a little bit competitive. You know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about.
That like learning all of this stuff. I grew up in church, so I've known about Satan and like known about these things, but knowing, I don't know what clicked in my brain over this series of like, no, actively trying to go against you and like, and doing that to hurt you and to hurt God, that gets me like fired up. Like I am like, like you think you're going to get at me? Like, you know, like I don't know what it is, but this whole series has just been so cool. Like I've learned so much, and I just think, I don't know if it's part of like memorizing it too, but I think we talked about, I don't remember when, I think we talked about when you start to memorize these things and when you're learning these things, and I loved how Jake put it, like we're learning about our enemy. Like you have to know the enemy because he knows everything about you, and he, you know, I have felt like spiritually attacked more.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people can resonate with that, where like, I'm doing good. Like I'm enjoying this. I've been loving this series, but then sometimes I'm like like I had a horrible day the other day, and I was just like, what is going on? And I had to say out loud to myself, like, you know, you either trust in God's plan or you don't, like, and you do. And so like, why are we still upset? And then I was done. Like I just, and I prayed and I was like, okay, I'm good. But like, how crazy is that? It's like, and I think starting to realize these things, that like my flesh and like myself, my human brain, like working against me, I'm like, oh no, like we're not doing this. God's in charge. I'm not going to, you know, like, I don't know.
It is funny with the length of this series, there are common themes. Like I said it in the message yesterday, we keep coming back to 1 Peter 5 and to James 4. Satan's like a roaring lion, seeking who he can devour. Resist the devil and he'll flee from you. We keep coming back to that stuff. And a concept that it feels like we want to say every week is, and Tim said it really well last week, there's a danger in looking for Satan in everything. Right. And putting so much emphasis on Satan that we miss God.
Yeah, because then it's almost like you're giving him power instead of looking for the positive.
And there's on the flip side of that, there's danger in saying Satan. He's just pretending.
Yes.
He's a
Or just
Halloween character. That,
not thinking about it. Because I think that's where
Yeah.
I'm getting real. I'm sherry today, but like I think that's where I was. Like I grew up in church. I knew these things are real, but I did not give them that much weight or like think about like, wait, what is this? Like I didn't think about those things.
Yes.
So it's almost like I was basically saying they weren't real, in a way.
Yeah, it is. I think when you land at the place where you see Satan in everything and you say, oh, I got up in the middle of the night and I kicked the couch with my toe and it broke my toe, that there's some spiritual warfare going on.
Right.
Well, probably the spiritual warfare that's really at stake is not about your toe at all. It's about your attitude to respond to the circumstances that are around. And that may be where the spiritual battle is, but we want to say, oh, Satan moved that couch, so I kicked it. And that's, maybe... I think
just got to be careful with that.
I think it's probably more about when we recognize that there is a spiritual battle going on around us, it makes us reflect on how we respond to whatever our circumstances are, and to not put so much emphasis on the circumstances, but on our response and giving our response to God and saying, God, help my heart respond, help the things that break your heart, break my heart. Help the things that bring you joy, bring me joy. Help me react in such a way that it's clear that my mind is transformed and not conformed to the world.
Yeah, that's my thing too. Is usually now that I'm noticing these things, the first thing I do is run to prayer, where I'm like, I think this is going on. I don't really know, but like I'm here for you to tell me what's up. Like God, you're in control of the situation no matter what.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm telling you, I've been loving this series. It's so good. So again, just to jump back into where we were with we started with the shoes, the gospel of peace, because that's our foundation.
Yep.
Do you have anything that you want to add? I believe in the message you said it's like our foundation, but also like the hope that keeps us going.
The preparation of the gospel of peace, that it's the foundation and the hope. And to me, as I studied for the message, that was something I got really excited about when I began to put that into words, to say we're able to fight because we recognize that we have the peace of God in us, the peace that passes understanding, the peace that comes from knowing that God's in charge.
Yeah.
That shapes the way that we respond to the circumstances that are around us. But also, a part of the issue of the shoes, the gospel of peace, is the recognition that if I'm in conflict with a person, with my boss, with my former boss, whatever that is, if I'm in conflict with a family member or whatever, that God wants them to experience the gospel of peace. That often in our minds, they become the adversary. They become the opponent that we have to make sure that we win the battle over, and we miss that but the battle is that they would come to know Jesus as well. And so those
and it's not looking at them, it's looking at like
the bigger picture.
Yes, bigger picture.
And recognizing how God might use you in the way that you respond, the words that you say, how you approach a situation, so that they can see Jesus as well.
Yep. I think the unexplained peace and like how you act, it's crazy. That is what draws people either to you and then to understand. My biggest thing recently is I don't know how to explain to people like the peace that I feel sometimes. 'Cause like we talked about before, like my son passed away, and like people, I try to explain to him, it doesn't mean that I don't get sad and I don't cry sometimes. Yeah. But like just the peace of knowing that I get to see him again, and that it's because of Jesus, and like it's just, I don't know how to explain it. Like I'm able to laugh, I'm able to be happy, I'm able to see joy in things where I never would have thought I would have been there. So it's just so hard to explain to people about that peace, in that I mean, if you get angry or upset, you lash out and you're not being yourself. You're not thinking yourself. When you have peace and you're calm in situations, you handle things better. And so like, what a great like starting point for like going, start right at your feet. And actually this morning when I was reading over this again, it was making me think of like, this is so stupid. I had a lot of like foot problems or like feet injuries in high school, and like I had to have surgery. But the reason I found out it was my feet were the problem was because my back was hurt, and then my leg was hurt. And so it starts, and they said, actually, like, we're gonna look at your feet, and I'm like, no, it's my back. And they're like, yeah, no, but it's because you're walking weird, and now it's making your whole body like
out of whack.
Yeah. And so I was like, wow, like that made me like. Of course, now we start. So I was still forgiving you about skipping. 14,
you know what's
verse
funny
14.
One of the things that didn't make it into the message was last week I went to a podiatrist for the first time.
Oh, okay.
And I went to the podiatrist because I've got some ugly looking big toenails.
Nice.
That that I don't care that they're ugly, but they
doing damage.
They impact what happens with my feet, and because I'm still trying to, we're still working towards climbing Kilimanjaro next summer. And I wanted him to look at my feet to be able to say, is it realistic for me to think about climbing a 19,000 foot mountain and coming down or not? Because everything I've read says the worst injuries climbing Kilimanjaro are the trip back down because you come down almost the entire way in one day, and that it's a common thing for people to lose their toenails, and to have that impact their feet in a ugly kind of way.
Yeah.
And so I was going to talk just about going to see the podiatrist because
that would have been perfect.
Well, I mean, it fit, but he gave me the go ahead anyway, and some stuff to take care of my toenails, which is interesting. But that's a part of getting ready for the battle that's coming. And let me say this too. I had a good friend correct me that I said, first service, I said John McCain, not John McClane, in my reference to Nakatomi Towers and Die Hard.
I wasn't there in first service.
Yeah. So, I did say that. Yeah, it was McClane. But to me, that imagery, if you know that movie, where he's having to run across that broken glass and bandages his feet. I've had some times where I've had cuts and injuries and stuff on my feet, and it just cripples you because you can't do stuff, which is why, again, the imagery of the shoes is just so cool, that at that point in time, to recognize that the armies would put those spears and knives, the kind of things that would prick into the soldiers' feet as they came through the field, because they knew that if they got their feet, it was they weren't
game
gonna make
over.
It.
Yeah. No, that is very interesting. And I think that one of the peace is such an interesting thing that you would think to put with armor, because that's not the first thing you would think, like at all. You would. Kind of how I was saying, I was getting fired up, like you're getting ready to go to battle, but it's like, and it starts with peace. Like that's, I just think that's cool. And I think it really, like, what a cool way, like that's just Jesus, you know, like,
but it's a rational peace.
Oh yeah.
It's not a pretend, oh yeah, everything's good.
Oh yeah. No,
it is. No, God has already won. And so I'm living out this conflict right now, but God's already won. That helps you see past whatever all the garbage is that you're going through.
Yeah. I have a random question to throw in there. I think so. It was 13, and it talks about like to stand. I guess, what do you think the importance is of that being repeated? Because we talked about like being prepared, and do you think it's for that, like, we talk about that time of evil that's coming, and I don't know, like, because to me, I'm reading that and I'm like, to stand, like, and I loved Jake's imagery of like it's not a retreat, like, so there's nothing. That was so cool. I loved that too. And so like I see too, like, more than perseverance,
Yeah. So in Greek, in Greek language, whenever something's repeated, that is added emphasis on it. So it's like stand, really stand, really stand, really stand. Don't miss this at all. I think it's because in a spiritual battle, when we're in the midst of that, so often our response is to just fold and just say, this is too hard.
Yeah.
I give up, and to walk away. That just becomes kind of, that's the easiest thing to do, rather than to stay engaged, to stay in the battle. And you know, I had a phrase in there about going spiritually AWOL, and to think about, you know, in a physical war, if a soldier goes AWOL, that's the worst thing that can happen, because everybody else is counting on you. And if you take yourself out of the battle, you essentially give that ground to whoever your enemy is. And so I think Paul's encouragement to stand firm, therefore, that it really is to say, hang in there. You get to verse 15, you've got the gospel of peace. God has won, and you've got to stick in there and stick with it.
And help me out here. You said I think you said we must withstand. What was the other? You said two other things.
Stand, like face to face.
And then in armor.
Stand armed.
Yes.
Not armor, but armed with weapons.
Armed.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I liked that too, because it kind of put more like description to stand.
Yeah, that withstanding image, I really, really liked that. That it's like the stuff that Satan keeps throwing against you, you don't let that change your course. You don't let that, it really is kind of like, oh yeah, you've got your Kevlar on and they shoot you. You don't go down, you stay right where you are, you don't run away. You stick in there.
Yep.
And then that you fully engage, that stand that's face to face.
Yep.
Stand firm.
And I think too, just what you said, like the importance of it, just being like, I think Jake said, like, the enemy's not afraid to sucker punch you. Like, they're not fighting fair.
Right.
They are going to get you where it really hurts, and then keep poking at that.
Right.
Like, so I think that's just, it's a good reminder to stand, and because it's going to keep coming.
Yep.
Like, it's not something that's going to be done in a day, or like, you're like, wow, I got through that. I'll probably never feel that way again. And it's like, what? Yeah, you will.
Again, in studying the passage, the day of evil, that phrase, the day of evil, to me, that was just really interesting as well, to recognize that it's not talking about a collective day of evil. It's talking about individually. There's a day of evil that's coming for all of us. And that may be the time when somebody that you love dies. That may be the time when somebody that you love leaves you. It may be the time that the thing that you've counted on is taken away.
Yep.
Whatever that is, that happens. And if you stand firm there, it's not like Satan gives up and says, "Oh yeah,
like, oh dang,
they're so
they
strong."
Got me. Yeah.
The picture that's there is that day of evil will come again. And again, always looking for a new place where you're vulnerable to be able to hit you where you're exposed, where you're soft, where you're unprotected.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's that wraps up our podcast. Do you have anything else that you want to like kind of add in?
I was looking in my notes. I've got 3 piles of papers here. One is podcast notes. One's my sermon from yesterday, and one is the background stuff.
Maybe this is why people don't put in questions. They're like, Rick's got stuff.
Well,
He's got material.
I've always got stuff I can talk about. There just was a word that I thought was so good in part of the prep stuff that somebody had written, but I can't find it right now. It just talked about the fierce reality, the dire consequences that come in spiritual battle.
Okay.
That it's easy for us who have been in the church for a long time to say, oh yeah, put on the whole armor of God. You got the breastplate of righteousness, the helmet of salvation, you got all that stuff. Oh yeah, there's a battle going on, that kind of stuff. And to forget that the consequences and what's at stake are real, and whatever adjective you use to describe the destruction that Satan wants, it's horrible. He wants to destroy your life. He wants to destroy your relationship with God. He wants to destroy everything that you believe that you stand for.
Yep.
And he's going to do everything that he can to do that. There is a spiritual battle that we're engaged in that we've got to experience. We've got to be ready for. That's probably the best way to come to conclusion. Back to the be prepared thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I forgot if we've said it already today, but just being prepared because I guess the John Wooden quote where it's like the failing to prepare is preparing to fail.
Yep.
Because you never know when something's going to happen to you. In fact, a lot of people, including myself, have thought like, oh, that, and I don't know if I've ever verbalized it, like that'll never happen to me. But you just think that. Like you see something happen to somebody else, you're like, yeah, that probably won't happen to me. You don't know. Right. Like you never know. And so just being prepared and ready for if something horrible does happen. Hopefully you never have anything that does happen that bad, but like just being prepared, it's worth it.
Yeah.
Worth it.
Yeah. It's funny because, I tend to read a lot of different kinds of stuff and finished a book fairly recently about stuff that happened during World War II in Austria. And just thinking about the people who were prepared spiritually for what happened when Hitler came in and took over.
Oh.
Bonhoeffer was ready. And so many people were like, yeah, it's bad. It's not really that bad. It's not really going to affect me. They didn't recognize what was at stake and they weren't prepared. And the end result was that millions of people lost their lives. Millions of families were destroyed because they didn't take the preparation piece seriously.
Yep. Big. It's serious stuff, but I think it's just so important to internalize all of this. So I'm excited for next week.
Yeah.
So 14? Verse 14?
Verse 14.
All right, good. Right. So if anybody else is worried like me, we're going back. We're not skipping it.
So let's hear it.
Oh, no, please don't. Please don't make me. Literally the whole time I was like, I can do it. I'm hyping myself up because I know you're just as competitive as me.
Finally.
What?
Finally.
Oh, no, please don't. Okay. I'm going to do it when we shut the cameras off and then I can.
Oh.
Hey, I'm the host. I control this. Okay.
It's done. The podcast is over. Now let's hear it.
Podcast is over. We're gonna cut it out. All right, thanks guys. Okay, now you're okay.
Let's hear it.
Okay. Oh gosh. Now I hope nobody watched this part. Okay, turn it off. Finally, find your strength in the Lord and in His mighty power. See, I can't do it. It's too hard. I say it every single day. Put on the full armor of God to take your stand against the devil's schemes. We are not in the battle against flesh and blood, but of the rulers, the authorities, and the powers of this evil world, and the evil spirits in the heavenly realms. Yep. And then I don't know this one yet. I'm still working on this one.
Good. You're using a different translation
version.
Yeah, than I do.
See, I do know it, but this is hard.
Well, you get put on the spot. But
yes.
the great thing that fits into the whole conversation, when you can do it in a time of stress, then
I'll do it later.
No. Then you really have it.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll say, and then we really will shut this off. I think when you memorize and you're put on the spot, you have to think through, okay, what did they say? Why did they say it? Why did Paul say, oh, yeah, he starts finally because of it's the end of the letter, finally be strong in the Lord and in His mighty power. Put on the full armor of God that you may take your stand against the
devil's schemes.
The schemes of the devil, that as you begin to think through that, every time that you come to a place that you think, I don't know what's coming next, you have to think, oh, wait, I have memorized this. Why? What comes next and why? And I think that's the picture of the whole meditation thing where
helps you think through it.
Just processing it over and over again, and then it gets in your heart and it comes out all of a sudden when you're in a time of crisis.
Yeah. Yep. That's pretty good
stuff. Good job.
Well, thanks. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, thanks guys. We'll see you on Sunday.